Hey folks, welcome to Welcome to My World. It's Dominique back here with you, and today we're going to be jumping right into the show. I really need to update and kind of like reevaluate some of my intro music. I love it, but like we've got to be able to have some fun music as well as some serious music, and holy shit, a man just tumbled down the stairs outside of my apartment. Apparently folks are there to assist him, and he doesn't seem like he's hurt, but that was I realized that was an odd rejoinder, but my God, that was an odd occurrence. Okay. Hopefully that doesn't bode ill for the rest of our show, and we certainly hope that gentleman is doing well. My goodness. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, sidebar, there's a little business, and I'm not going to tell you which one because that wouldn't be very respectful. But, I use my life as material for my show because I feel like some of it's of interest, certainly not all of it. But for those of you who are unaware, and probably that goes for many of you, there's a business near, we'll say, to be very vague about it, near my building. And it is in the middle of a really gorgeous, well built, well done, sort of upper middle class area. And it's just an absolute hole in the wall dive. The roof is caving in. It's got really unsafe sort of building access. And there appear to be drug deals going down late at night. So super not cagey and absolutely legit business structure, right? Totally the way I run my business. I definitely want people to walk up to an unsafe building where the roof is falling down, get shit-faced, and then leave to do drug deals out back, because that is the American dream. Now, if that wasn't enough sarcasm for you to start off the show, I feel like maybe it was. Hey, but everyone can use more sarcasm in their life, right? Am I right? No? Well, that's too bad, because if you're listening to this one, you're going to get it. We're going to actually talk about that particular topic. Not businesses that are a front for drug rings, not gentlemen falling downstairs, but sarcasm. So let's start with what is sarcasm. Let's start with what is sarcasm. Well, and folks, I realize that seems like a dumb question to many people, but there really are people out there who don't get it. And I feel like maybe this could be a learning moment for some of those people. And for the rest of us, we can just sit and point and laugh at those who do not understand the sarcasm by being super sarcastic and watching their heads explode. Fun times. Fun times will be had for all. So, sarcasm essentially is let's walk that back a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go a different route. Sarcasm, I would say, is a way of expressing a truth or truths, plural, which sort of defy description, okay? And I believe that the current term sarcasm comes from the Latin term sarcasmus, and that I believe that means to wound or injure, or possibly to rip the skin apart or something of that nature. This is me relying on education that I received quite a long time ago, so feel free to judge me harshly for not being able to describe that word to you. But essentially, truly, it really does essentially mean to puncture or wound or injure. I'm probably not reading the Webster's dictionary definition, but that is basically what it means. Now, as we all know, language as well as culture as a whole evolves, right? So it doesn't mean what it meant in Greek and Roman times anymore. We don't use sarcasm to hurt or injure. Well, some of us do, but we've talked at length, I feel like, about cluster B personality disorders, right? We've talked at length about cluster B personality disorders. And we've talked about how those folks, because they don't fully understand sarcasm, tend to misuse it. They tend to abuse it. And, not in terms of like watching a Seth Rogen movie or something like that. They actually abuse it in that they use it to purposefully wound or injure and to project their hurt, their pain onto other people, right? Because they don't understand empathy, as you know if you've listened to my show. They don't understand empathy, you guys. So it's important to understand that. So if you hear people out there saying things like, well, sarcasm is always used to hurt other people, take that as a clue that the person saying it uses it to hurt other people, right? So that's a telling statement. When somebody says something like, well, sarcasm is only used to injure or wound, well, yeah, you're telling me how you use it. You're telling me something about yourself. You're showing me your ass, right? You're showing me your own ass. And so that is a valuable statement, just not in the way the person probably originally intended when they made it. So moving aside from that and kind of moving forward and away from that notion, which really is incorrect nowadays because, as I've said, culture and language evolve and move forward, and we with it, hopefully. We hope. So it has evolved into something that really, I think, gets at the heart of humanity. It really gets at the heart of the human experience. And so I feel that it's very important. And many of us, I think, implement that as a tool. So what really, if we look back at the oldest allegories, right, of human history, we're going to be seeing things like the allegory of the cave, aren't we? We're going to be really getting at the heart of human existence, right? And so we use allegory in order to communicate what? Well, truths that are hard to explain, that are hard to get out there, that are hard to wrap our minds around and then project into language and put out there as verbiage and as language and as communication. And so sarcasm helps us to do that. Now, of course, it's not appropriate in every aspect of life at every moment in time, right? It's not necessarily appropriate at a funeral or something. It's not necessarily appropriate at a work meeting. Although sarcasm applied appropriately and correctly can actually help to diffuse bitter, hostile, or angry situations. But really, it is intended to help us to express truths that don't lend themselves to language and to words. And I think, to me at least, and you guys feel free to tell me what you think and be as sarcastic as you like, to me it's something important. To me it's something that really assists us in communicating certain truths. It assists us in helping other people to understand where we're coming from and to understand how we see the world around us. And isn't that really the goal of just about everything we do in human life? I mean, that's a huge deal right there. So to simply say, it's used to injure and wound and hurt is not correct. That's just not true. It is an essential part of our communication. And, of course, there are ways we can use it which are problematic at best. Of course, there are ways we can use it that might wound or hurt, but there are ways we can use actual humor and regular everyday words that can wound and hurt and that can really cause trouble for other people. But that's not the sarcasm at work. That's us expressing what's in our hearts, and that is us purposefully injuring another person. Now, we could use any number of tools to do it, not just sarcasm. So I'm trying to kind of address some of the misconceptions about it as well as what it actually is. Now that we know what it is, that it's sort of a tool that we use to express truths that don't lend themselves very well to human communication, let's talk about what it means to sort of receive that message of sarcasm. What does it mean? When somebody comes up to you and you feel like you have a good grasp on humor, a good sense of humor, and somebody says something really ironic, really sarcastic, really funny, what does that mean to you? Well, out of all the things that person could have chosen to do or say, they could have said, "Hi, how are you?" And of course, that is a very stale utterance, a very stale statement that has come to mean next to nothing. And that wouldn't have meant much to us. But if somebody comes up and says something in the right way, something like, this probably isn't the best example, but something like, good thing this business is on point. It would suck if the line was long while you're sitting there waiting for coffee at the coffee shop that's, got a line out the door where there's like one dude behind the counter. Saying that to somebody, and this is something I actually did the other day, so forgive me, it's the only thing that jumps to my mind right now. I feel like I bonded with that person for a minute, and then we kind of had a back and forth, and we did a little bit, and it cheered us up, it brightened up the moment, we had some fun, and we were able to, air our frustration in a healthy way and laugh with each other, which I think is really valuable. And we were able to just communicate this truth back and forth and kind of feel it out and take it in, feel it, toss it back, take it in, feel it, toss it back, and have this back and forth that was really deep and meaningful, but that only took a really short time, right? So it was something that was very deep and very meaningful. It only took a short moment, and the fact that we both remember that and that I'm referring to it a couple of days later, I think really says something about that encounter. So it can really be used in a positive way. Now, I didn't say this loudly so the business owner could overhear and feel badly. I was pleasant to the people around me, so clearly I'm not using it to wound, and I don't think the woman I was speaking to was in any way attempting to wound. So it became a really positive interaction, and I think we can really use sarcasm and use humor and laughter to interact with each other and to kind of communicate our own truths as well as existential truths, as well as shared reality truths, like, man, this line is long, what the hell's going on? Why is there only one dude working back there? In a way that touches on deeper human emotions and deeper human experiences. And so it is a really valuable tool. But for those who misunderstand it, there are, problems that are going to come across. Now, even if you use sarcasm in a positive way, if you use irony in a positive way, and you perhaps say something funny to lighten the mood in the appropriate context, and somebody looks at you like you're from Mars, that's clearly somebody who doesn't understand sarcasm, and rather than internalizing it. Now, of course, you should look at the situation and say, okay, maybe was I meaning to hurt somebody? Should I have said that? Was that appropriate? And if the answers to those questions are positive ones, no, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Yes, that was an appropriate situation. Yes, I was trying to lighten the mood. Yes, I was trying to connect with somebody. Then you're not at fault. And take it with a grain of salt, but there are people out there that don't get it. And I guess we could call them the uninitiated if we want to. Now, let's talk about some of those problems. So oftentimes, and I am going to get to the comments and listener comments in just a moment so that we can have a little discussion here, but let's talk about some of these problems, shall we? So first and foremost, like I said, there are people who are uninitiated, who aren't going to get it, who aren't going to understand, and who are going to take what you're saying as a personal insult. But fortunately, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way, those same people are going to be the ones who you walking by them is going to be taken as a personal insult. So I guess what I'm saying is don't feel the need to stop using humor in every situation because someone was offended. Look at your own motivations, look at your own reasoning, look at why you chose to do that. And if the answers are positive, affirmative, uplifting, then, take it with a grain of salt and hopefully assume that maybe you taught that person something. Maybe there was a teaching moment there, the beginning of a life lesson, perhaps. But let's talk about some of the problems that can arise from this, and some of them are quite humorous. For those of you who know, I'm going to talk about some of my experiences. I use humor a lot in my work. I use humor a lot in my show. I use humor a lot in my writing. And I don't do it to hurt or injure other people. But I have a couple, now I'm not going to out anybody, but I have a couple of viewers and a couple of readers and a couple of listeners who every time I say something are like, oh, that's what you're about? Oh, well, you have strange rules. You have weird boundaries. I'm like, right, I was using humor to communicate something. I'm very capable of communicating something in a serious way, but I feel like humor diffuses and humor makes people feel good, hopefully, and lifts people up. So when you get responses like that, sometimes it can be a little challenging, and I do get those responses. Of course, for the most part, I get people who really connect with me on a deep level and are like, oh man, I feel you, sister. That's me. This is what I do. This is how I am. And that makes me very happy. In fact, I'm making someone else smile, making someone else laugh. I think that's awesome. But there are going to be the people out there that don't understand it and who assume that you're just not capable of communicating anything in a different way. And, the irony is that the people who say things like that are actually not capable of communicating anything in a different way than they're doing right now, which is flat, serious, flat affect, no humor, right? So who's really incapable here? Is it me? Is it the humorist? Or is it the person receiving that humor, right? So I think it's really a positive thing on the whole. And as I mentioned, anything can be used to wound if that's your intent. But I think on the whole, it's a very positive form of communication. Now, let's look into this for a minute, the sort of problematic nature here, the problems that can arise. What can we learn from this? Certainly, we're not going to be able to please everyone, even if we go through life being demure and kind and cute and, oh, sir, please, can I have another? Even if we go through life like that, we're not going to please everyone. So why not be authentic and express our truths and be who we are and communicate what's important to us? But there are going to be people that receive it poorly. And I do think there's a lesson in that, folks. I really do. I think that sarcasm to me is something it's really important to people understand. Humor is really important to the human experience, if you will. Now, I think it's also really important to take note of people who don't understand humor or sarcasm. When we come into contact with these people, if it's at all possible, I think it's normally a good idea to take that as a red flag, warning sign, danger, Will Robinson, there is something off about this person. Now, of course, there are mental and psychological and brain development conditions that afflict people that, not understanding humor and sarcasm can actually be a symptom of. So I'm certainly not in any way trying to denigrate or demonize people, for instance, with Asperger's or, anything like that. But I think that ruling that out, most of the people you're going to come in contact with that don't understand humor, that don't get sarcasm, are going to be people on the cluster B spectrum. Okay, and we've talked about that before, but let's just go over it, do like a really brief primer, and, what is it, right? I know we've recently opened up to iHeartRadio. I don't want people, turning off and going, oh, well, I don't know what the hell that is, so see you later, sister, peace. So cluster B personality disorders are as follows. They're psychopathy, sociopathy, for those of you who distinguish between the two. I am one of those professionals that distinguishes between the two. And I really find humor to be a useful tool in all mental health fields and even physical health fields, to be totally honest. So cluster B, psychopathy, sociopathy. Yes, there's a distinction between the two. Histrionic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. So these are the 4 disorders that make up cluster B. And why are they important? Well, because they afflict 1 in 20 to 25 people. And they're really, really pervasive. They're really insidious. They're responsible for many tragic events in human history. They're responsible for Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. Guess what, by the way? Don't want to hear Holocaust denying. Go do that on a conspiracy blog. I'm not a good person to troll. Like I said, I've got a good command of humor and a good level of confidence, so jog on. But, truly, cluster B personality disorders are responsible for everything from the Holocaust to probably September 11th, which I am writing a book on, by the way. Shameless plug. Share your experiences with me. Where were you? What did you do? What did you feel? What did you go through on that day? If you're an American, I don't care where you were in the world. So, but truly, this is why I'm writing about this topic, because I focus on cluster B personality disorders, doing what I do as a coach and a lifestyle consultant. So really, cluster B personality disorders and folks who have them have been responsible for all number of tragedies and horrific events in human history. But they're not all killers. They're not all murderers and criminals who absolutely have a rap sheet or what have you. Most people who have cluster B personality disorders go unnoticed by law enforcement. They don't commit atrocities. They don't plan September 11th, or they don't try to rule Germany and start the Third Reich. They don't do things like this. They find careers in law enforcement. They find careers in the hero professions. They find careers as doctors. They find careers as lawyers, as financial advisors, as politicians, the hero professions. And by the way, I am not suggesting that everyone in those professions is on the cluster B spectrum. They're not. That's not something I think. That's not something anyone should think. But this is what cluster B personality disorders are. So they're very insidious, as I mentioned. They're very serious. And if 1 in 20 to 25 people have them, imagine how many of them there are out there in the world doing damage. And I think being able to spot someone who doesn't understand sarcasm is really a good ticket to being able to prevent people like that from, finding their way into your sphere, into your circle, into your life, because they will wreak unholy havoc, right? They will wreak havoc with your life, and they'll do it on purpose because there's just nothing inside them that animates them. They're emotional zombies. They have what I have called on many occasions with my clients in my writing on my show a soul level disorder. I'm not religious. I'm not one of those spiritual woo-woo types, but I think that's a good descriptor, assuming that your soul is who you are at your core. They have a soul level disorder. And being able to spot who doesn't get sarcasm, like I said, you guys, it's going to help you quite a bit in life. So take that as a learning moment for yourself. So do you see how important this whole humor and sarcasm and being able to express yourself and understand other people's expressions of their life situations is? Do you feel me on this? Are you with me? Now, of course, everybody who wasn't able to get your sarcastic comment is not on the cluster B spectrum. I don't want you going out there thinking that. Perhaps the person is focused on something else, isn't feeling well, is just a little bit of a stiff. I mean, there are any number of reasons why, maybe your humor wasn't received the way that you intended it to be. But take it as a possible red flag, warning sign, again, danger, Will Robinson sort of situation, and take that and really consider it when you're thinking about getting to know somebody new, when you're thinking about starting a working or a personal relationship with somebody. Take that into consideration. Having a good understanding of humor and sarcasm, positive sarcasm particularly, lends itself to highly creative people, highly intelligent people, hard workers, people who are goal-oriented. It lends itself to extreme intelligence. Folks, if you're somebody who possesses the ability to make other people laugh through sarcasm and, through your own experiences, you're a smart person. Like, you're really capable of doing big things, and I want you to think about using that in your life. Plus, humor is such a good communication tool. It's just something that, when used correctly, as I mentioned, can diffuse serious situations. It can really help people to get to know one another and to relate to each other. And it's just this beautiful, part of the human experience, isn't it? It is truly valuable. And it's a valuable skill to have, so don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It truly is. Do you think that David Sedaris or Dave Barry would be so popular if it weren't? Do you think that all of your parents and grandparents and even, people our age and younger would be out there going to humorist shows, listening to Stephanie Miller, listening to, some of these folks who have substantive shows, maybe myself included, I guess, and do substantive writing and do substantive work, but also have a really great grasp on humor if it wasn't something that most people connect with, right? It is. It is something that most people connect with. And if you have that ability, don't downplay it. It's really very valuable. And it's something that will help you when it comes to relating to other people and advancing your career, advancing your personal life in a positive way, and touching other people's lives in a positive way. Okay, so don't be made to feel bad for using humor. But do take that warning into account, that it could be a red flag if you're dealing with somebody like, some of my readers and some of the people who have commented on my social media sites and who, just don't get humor or sarcasm, that person could be a disordered individual. And that taken in context and in conjunction with other signs and other red flags, that this could be somebody you just don't want to continue getting to know. Now, of course, be responsible. Don't use that as an excuse. Don't come to a snap judgment. But this is a major problem area when it touches on human behavior, psychology, and humor, right? And certainly on human communication as a whole. This is a really substantive issue and a really important red flag. Now, just my last point on this, and we'll kind of move on and take some listener questions and listener messages and just have a little back and forth. But the last point that I really want to make about this is that if you do come across a disordered person, a potential cluster B individual, they may be able to use sarcasm, not in a positive way, really in a way that wounds, in a way that hurts people. So they may be able to use sarcasm and irony, but when it's used toward them, they will take it as rote. They will take it as is. If I were to approach a cluster B person, of course, unknowingly in the coffee line at my favorite coffee shop in Door County and, make the comment that I made, the person would probably just look at me like I was from Mars. Well, what do you mean? Of course, there's a line. They only have one employee back there. What do you mean? Do you not understand that? Do you have some kind of a brain problem? Are you okay? And it's so ironic because they're able to just be sarcastic as all shit and just, zingers left, right, and center. And they're never positive and constructive. They're always hurtful and ill-meaning, but, they're able to throw zingers and barbs left, right, and center. But when it comes to doing a bit and engaging and going back and forth, and when it comes to using humor at their expense, and when it comes to someone else using even positive humor around them, they ain't gonna get it. They're like, no habla inglés. No entiendo. I don't know. What do you mean? Huh? Nope. What? So if this is somebody that you're encountering when you're using humor, perhaps put a pin in it, walk away, and don't interact with that person. Don't engage with that person. So I want to hear from my listeners what, positive, awesome things have come out of you being humorous or sarcastic, or somebody being humorous or sarcastic, and what epic fails have happened in your life with regard to your sarcasm and your humor. What things have you witnessed? Perhaps you've witnessed somebody try to be hilarious during a work meeting or something and then end up having to go sit in the corner with the dunce hat on, basically. I want to hear your experiences, your thoughts on the matter. Do you think I'm full of shit? Do you think that this, maybe that I'm onto something here? What have your experiences been? Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, the relevant nerd. Nice to see you again. I just love that picture. I'm so into MCU and the Avengers. This guy has a picture of Thanos on his profile picture, and I think that's freaking awesome. But yeah, he says, imagine a world without sarcasm and just what would be changed. I would not want to be here without it. I totally agree. Now, I have somebody else who weighed in with a comment, and not in such a positive direction. Oh man, this makes me kind of sad. Sarcasm tends to make me feel unheard. Huh. Okay. So I feel you on that. Maybe though what you're looking at, and I'm not going to out this person because that was a very personal comment. We'll call this person John. So John, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a really shitty thing to have to feel. I'm sorry. It sounds like you've encountered the person that I've just described, that sort of cluster B, unwell, mean, disrespectful person that uses it to wound and hurt. Thanos, yes. And so I've got one more comment I'm going to read. And oh my gosh, if this person is listening, don't kick me. I promise I'm not going to out you or tell anyone who you are. Okay, so this is one of the comments on my Facebook page. I've just got to pull it up here. I just had it, and now it's reloading. Oh, okay. So I had posted just on my personal Facebook page where I post all manner of nonsensical silliness and a few kind of, interesting things here and there. And for those of you who are interested in any way, my family, starting with my dad, Ken Miller, who was epically hilarious on so many levels, just like, man, sarcasm was our language growing up. Like this, we connected on literally on a soul level through sarcasm. So I guess I can blame Dad for this. But basically, I said yesterday on my Facebook page, totally sarcastically, by the way, I would never actually go on like a physical rampage and hurt somebody because I didn't like something they said. But I said, if I hear one more grown adult use the word yummy, I'm going on a fucking rampage. And, most people just like responded with a laughy, response on Facebook. And we're like, hell yeah, please. Do it. Like, go on that rampage. I'm there with you. I feel you, sister. And I'll read you one of my friend's comments. My buddy Adam Collins, who has the podcast Adamant Atheism, which you should totally check out. He's absolutely hilarious. Says, my ex used to say that after a blowjob. I mean, I appreciate that what she was trying to do with that. But it was always a little unsettling and awkward. And I responded by saying, yes, it is. And it's a weird fucking thing for a grown-ass person to say. LOL. It is. It's a weird, I maintain that yummy is a weird thing to say. And then my buddy and I were joking about like songs with the title of yummy or words that say yummy in it, in a song or what have you. And we were just all going back and forth. And then somebody who chimes in, you have funny rules. I like this word. It has a good mouth feel when you say it. Huh? Like, what? Girl, like I'm not going to actually go on a rampage. I was being sarcastic. Everyone else got it. But this is somebody who, I love her. I love a lot of the things she has to say about life, about politics. She's a very thoughtful person. So I'm not in any way trying to say she's a bad human, but, she's one of those people who will chime in when I write something or, do a show or what have you and be like, I don't get it. That was mean. And I'm like, oh no, that was complete sarcasm. Of course I would never do that. I'm not a horrible person. I think everyone else got it except her. And so here's what I said. I said, oh my God, these are personal preferences. They're not rules and they're not funny. I feel like actual boundaries are important and they're necessary for mental health. So I guess she's referring to my boundaries when she's like, oh, these are weird rules. I don't get it. I'm like, no, these aren't rules. These are boundaries. They're healthy. They're not weird. They're not funny. They're healthy. But what I said just here was sarcastic. It was a joke. And, I said, I really would worry for somebody who just doesn't understand sarcasm. Like, what must the world be like for you? And this is sort of the conversation I've had with several of my readers. Again, like 90% of people get it. They're like, oh my gosh, that was funny, or I feel you, sister, I got you. Yep, I've had the same experience, or what have you. And I really feel like people connect with me and I connect with them. But then there are these, one or two or three folks, like for every show or every post that includes sarcasm or humor, there'll be somebody going, oh, you're horrible. What? What does that mean? That's awful. So, of course, because I am a sarcastic person, I had to follow up my statement with, here, this might help. And I included the link to the Simpsons sarcasm detector bit in the Simpsons episode, which is probably fucking like over the top and I shouldn't have done it. But it's sarcasm. It's funny. What I'm trying to do is encourage this person to take a load off and laugh with me. Okay, damn it, I'm going to make you do it. You're going to take the load off and the chip off your shoulder if I have to force you and drag you with me. So the Relevant Nerd says sarcasm can be tricky in nerddom. Absolutely. Most of their friends are not even nerds because sarcasm is against their fandom and is frowned upon. Yeah, exactly. And it is a problem I wish nerds would fix too. I was just watching, totally gonna butcher his name, but he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna say the name out loud. I'm gonna look it up and then put the link in the description because this guy is absolutely hilarious. But he does kind of like a gamer-centric, sort of nerd-centric podcast and does a YouTube channel, and he's really funny and sarcastic. And he sort of did this rant video a couple of years ago on like why it annoys the hell out of him when people don't understand sarcasm. And it was hilarious. It just like, if you are somebody who has a good sense of humor, you would laugh your ass off at it. It was hilarious. Well done. It was just the funniest rant, and it was so true. And I totally feel that as somebody who can use humor in their writing, oftentimes to convey a point, or who can kind of be a bit on the sarcastic side with one-on-one interactions in business on my show. I was like, oh man, I feel you so hard on this. And after watching it, I was like, I need to actually do a show myself about sarcasm, because it's not just this awful, unhealthy way of communicating that people who maybe don't understand it would think that it is. It's like I mentioned before, and this is me wrapping up the show, by the way. You're not going to have to listen to me rant for another 10 and a half years. But, it really is something that is incredibly important to the human experience and sort of the human condition. And I just feel like it's something that is so necessary, because like the allegory of the cave, like, some of the allegories in our religious texts and this sort of thing, and even like allegories and stories like Harry Potter, like Lord of the Rings, these allegories defy description. And so the only way that we can really go about describing, awkward, sad, hurtful, funny, whatever, parts of the human condition is through telling a story, is through utilizing humor, utilizing sarcasm. So, really important skill to have. And not only is it essential to the human condition, an important skill for individuals to have, but folks, it is an excellent way for you to be able to put your finger on perhaps people who are toxic, because they're not going to get it. And when people don't get it, and they don't get it consistently, that says something. And I think that's a really good sort of like piece of armor to wear. It's a good way to shield yourself from potential toxic people. Humor is just yet another tool in that tool belt, and it's going to be able to help you to feel people out and to get what people are about in a way that just having a totally straight back and forth might not do. So it's actually an awesome tool to help defend and protect yourself and your boundaries. And it's really a great way to uplift people, to communicate with people. And of course, again, I'm referring to sarcasm and facetiousness that is positive, that's uplifting, not that's tearing people down like, oh, that dress really looks good on you. That must be from the Gucci store on Michigan Avenue, right? Not stuff like that, but like I mentioned before about the coffee shop, because that's the example coming to my mind right now. Kind of, oh, good thing we're not all waiting in the longest line on earth, and good thing there's not just one dude behind the counter at the most popular coffee shop in the area. That kind of lends itself to validating all of our frustration, to connecting us as a group instead of just disparate, irritated people standing in line. And it gives us an outlet to let that irritation out, to laugh, to really just bond with each other. And I think it's a really useful, positive tool. You guys let me know what you think, and thank you for tuning in. I'm going to let this be it, and I'm going to wrap up our discussion. I may be back on the air tonight because I have a couple more topics that I have been wanting to address, and because I've been out of town and taking some time off, I have done some program notes, but I haven't actually recorded the show or done a live version of the show. So I may be back later on. Keep an ear out if you want to listen in. And thanks for joining me. Be well. Take care of yourselves. You're not alone.